The moment you opened your eyes to the world, you would probably be greeted by your mother's tired yet hopeful gaze in a small health center in Gitega or in a simple but crowded hospital in Bujumbura. The lack of resources around you would already be part of your struggle for life, even as you took your very first breath. With the warmth of your big family and your grandmother's prayers, you would feel the weight of Burundi's complex history from the very first day. Before we continue with the video, please don't forget to support our channel by subscribing, liking the video, leaving a comment, and sharing it. Your childhood would be shaped not only by Burundi's traditional and colorful way of life, but also by its serious problems. Most of your games would be running along dirt roads and making simple toys. You would grow up with the drum rhythms of the royal drummers of Burundi, dancing to powerful beats at weddings and festivals. But at the same time, you would also hear stories about your peers who were armed as child soldiers. Here, childhood was not always synonymous with innocence. When you started school, the conditions of education could have been challenging for you. You would study in an environment where there were few books, crowded classrooms, and insufficient teachers. In a society where ethnic tensions were deepening, sometimes even your ethnicity would shape your relationships with your friends. Even though education was a door of hope for you, you would often face economic and social obstacles, and might have to confront the early end of your school life. Your youth would be filled with financial difficulties, unemployment, and concerns about safety. The political conflicts in your country and the oppressive policies of the security forces would always threaten the lives of you and your family. Going out at night on the streets could have been extremely risky. Human rights violations, restrictions on freedom of expression, and the arrest of journalists would become part of daily life. But many young people, you might have dreamed of escaping from Burundi and settling in another country. The economic desperation, political oppression, and security threats in your country would drive young people to embark on dangerous and uncertain journeys to Europe or other African countries. The hardships faced along the migration route would lead to families being torn apart and young people risking their lives. If you were born a woman, life could have been even harder for you. You would struggle to access your right to education and work, and face heavy responsibilities both at home and in society. You would often be deprived of your inheritance rights, could be forced into early marriage, or face domestic violence. Social norms would constantly confine you to traditional roles. When you reached the age of marriage, your freedom to choose was often limited. Marriages arranged by families were common, and the burden you took on with marriage was heavy. While women had to live under heavy responsibilities at home, you would see men struggling under the burden of providing for the family amid economic hardships. Divorce in marriages was almost impossible. Social pressure and economic dependence could constantly make you feel helpless. Because economic conditions were tough, most of your life would be spent just trying to meet basic needs. Your access to essentials like food, clean water, electricity, and healthcare would be limited. Frequent fuel shortages, power outages, and lack of medicine would deeply affect your daily life. The inadequacy of healthcare services would be a serious problem at every stage of your life. Hospitals would usually operate with insufficient equipment and medicine, making it difficult to find treatment for serious illnesses. Many people would lose their lives to simple illnesses, and you would struggle with the helplessness of not being able to access adequate healthcare. Burundi was also a country where economic exploitation and corruption were widespread. Despite its rich natural resources, the majority of the population would live in poverty due to the exploitation by foreign companies and local elites. The system of exploitation would hinder the country's development and drain the hopes of many young people like you. Things could get even harder as you reached old age. With healthcare services being almost completely inadequate and no government support for elderly care, you would be largely dependent on your family. If you weren't living with your children or grandchildren, being alone would become a real threat. Growing old in a society where most elderly people depend on family support and social support systems are weak would often be a difficult and exhausting process. But despite all these difficulties, Burundi's cultural richness and natural beauty would bring you small moments of happiness. The green forests of Kibira National Park, the peaceful shores of Lake Tanganyika, and the warm neighborly relations in small villages would keep you connected to life. The sense of unity in the community and the shared hardships would give you the strength to endure. Being born in Burundi meant resisting the harsh conditions of life. Even though it was full of difficulties, inequalities, and dangers, you would try to stay strong with the power of your cultural heritage and social solidarity. Even in the midst of poverty and violence, you would find hope and become part of the story of a people who managed to stand tall despite Burundi's deep wounds. Don't forget to write in the comments which country you'd like to see in the next video. You ask, we deliver.